Hello everyone and welcome on De Papier et de Rêve channel. I'm Ursula and today I will be painting with you some birch tree. And this video is dedicated to my watercolor student here in Stockholm, with them I've made this painting exactly last week, and they asked for me to make a video so that they can repaint it at home easily. So I'm starting this painting with the background, and I will not paint the birch tree until the end. I will work on the background first, so I'm painting around the birch tree. In fact, I want them to be white against a darker sky. In my reference picture, which you can see on my blog, I will put the link in the description below. It's totally not the same. The birch tree are darker than the sky, but as they are my focus point, I think that it's the best that they are quite stronger in contrast than the sky, so I make them white and the sky darker. And for the color of the sky, I've used Indanthrene blue with burnt sienna. I think it's a very nice combination of colors to get some really dark gray. And they have a tendency to separate a little bit. So there's speckle of blue and speckle of burnt sienna in my sky, and I like that a lot. And for this first layer, I'm focusing on placing the big area of color first with no details at all, so that I can work on detail later once everything is dry. It's quite tempting to rush in a painting and not wait until it's fully dried, but it's quite important to let it dry fully at some point to avoid blooms and colors running in a wet area. I've left a lot of white open in this painting after my first layer. First for the tree, of course, because I want them to be really white against a dark background. And also at the bottom, you can see in my reference image that the bottom is quite dark, but I wanted it to be much lighter in order to not oppose a dark contrast against the sky. I want it to be a little bit more aerial and atmospheric in a way. My reference picture was taken in a walk around a lake in Stockholm this fall, and I made a sketch about this photo right after my walk. And I didn't think at first that a big painting of this sketch would be nice because I like the sketch effect, but in fact I think birch tree are very nice to paint, and the composition is quite dynamic, and I like this painting a lot. On a more technical side, I work all the top of my painting with quite cold colors and the bottom with warmer colors, and it gave a nice effect and a nice contrast, and it gives a lot of dynamic this way. And the birch tree is like a link between the warm and the cold side. And there is still a unity between the warm and the cold side, because I've used one color in common in all the side of my painting, which is Quinacridone gold. There is Quinacridone gold in the green at the background on the forest, and there is also Quinacridone gold in the herbs at the front, mixed with Quinacridone burnt scarlet. And now I'm starting to paint the birch tree. I've left them for quite at the end of my painting, because darkest dark will be in there in this painting, so you can wait until the end to paint them. I'm using a dry brush technique to paint them. I'm picking my colors on my brush, but I'm blotting all the water down in order to have pigment but not too much water. And I'm brushing very softly the paper with my brush in order to get paint just on the top of my paper and not in the hollow, so that it creates a really rough texture. And by adding a little bit of darker color here and there, I'm creating the texture of the tree, and that's really it. It's really easy to paint birch tree this way. So it took me just a few seconds and a few brush strokes, and here you have some birch tree. That's really amazing this way. And now let's talk about supplies. For the brushes, I've used a Raphaël Petit Gris 803 number 2 and an Escoda aquario number 18. And at the end, I'm using a Rosemary Co serie 39 1/2 inch in a dagger shape. For the color, I've used Indanthrene blue, Quinacridone gold, Quinacridone burnt scarlet, and burnt sienna. And my paper is Canson héritage in rough. And now it's time for the fun part, painting details and branches on the birch tree. I love this part because it's quite relaxing, and it's very fun to do. You can take your time and work very slowly to make them really natural. I like to use this big brush in a dagger shape because the point is very, very fine, and the long bristles are quite random in the effect, so the branches are a little bit more natural in this way. You have less control on the point, so yes, the branches are more natural. Some tips to paint branches. It's good to make them very different from one another, and also in every direction, on the left and the right, on the side of the birch tree, but also in front of you on the birch tree. So there need to be branches all over the tree, in fact. It's easier and more natural to make some straight lines in place of bent branches, because in the nature it's more like straight lines, in fact, and it gives this whimsy effect, and I think it's really more natural that way. For the color, I'm using the same color as the trunk, which is a mix of Indanthrene blue and burnt sienna. With those two colors, you can have a really, really dark color, almost black, and very soft gray at the same time. At the beginning of my painting, you were able to see that my trunk were very rough and not straight at all, but I'm using those defects to place some branches in some places and make it look more natural too. And this way you can correct every bump in your tree as you like, by placing some branches or a dark area. And you are done with your birch tree. It's very easy, you see. And at the end, I'm liking this painting a lot because it's very easy to do, and it gave a nice effect. The birch tree are so easy, you have to try, and it's a perfect subject for a beginner at watercolor painting. And I like also very much the contrast between cold and warm colors. It represents nicely the fall season, I think. And I like the atmosphere in this painting. It's a bit dark with the clouds very dark, and the very overcast sky. And one thing, you don't need my brush to make the branches. You can use any brush you have. If it has a nice fine tips, it will be perfect. You just have to manage the pressure you put on the brush and the paper, and if you are very light, you will paint very fine lines. And this video is now ending. Thanks for watching. I hope you like it. Please check the blog post for more information about it and tell me what you think in the comments. See you soon.